All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 69 of Palantir Weekly.
Can you mute Matt? I think I hear it.
Sorry, I'm done.
Matt's like fingering his microphone
He's
right
doing
now or
things
something. I don't know what
with a microphone.
he's doing. Things to the microphone. Matt Money is in the house as always. Chris is in the house. Mid is in the house. And we've got Arnie today, our special guest, who is here with us. He is up 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in Italy right now to be able to do this. So thank you, Arnie, for being here and shedding some light on Palantir. He's the writer of the Substack Palantir Bullets. I will link it in the description in the chat. Please make sure to subscribe to that and get a weekly update every week on what's going on in Palantir. I'm going to get to we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to get to the straight biggest news of the day. We'll start with Arnie, and then we'll get to Chris and Matt. Palantir released their Defense AIP product demo out into the world. It went kind of viral on Twitter. You had a bunch of people doing like computer science at Stanford talking about it, a bunch of tech people at Stripe tweeting about it, really saying positive things about how this is one of the most interesting use cases of integrated AI. And even Elon Musk responded to what Palantir is doing. So Arnie, what was your first reaction when you saw that demo video, and kind of what are your overall thoughts on what it can mean for the trajectory of the company?
Well, I recorded the video without seeing it, and I looked again my reaction, and I was like, what? Because, we know that large language models is like magic somehow, but, and I thought, okay, this thing will be actually very impactful on the battlefield in making things faster. But I didn't fully rationalize the fact that it's not only about making things faster, it's actually making them. Here, we are not talking only about asking questions, receiving an answer. For me, what was really striking is, for instance, hey, send the drone there. Boom, the drone moving. This thing basically gets one step closer from making the reality we see in the video games actually a reality. I know war is not a video game, but everyone who has ever played video games related to war knows how simple and effective things could be in a digital world. And it's like Palantir is able to take that vision into reality, and that is effing scary.
Okay, Chris, your thoughts? You kind of predicted this many Palantir Weeklies ago in terms of comparing it to some video game footage. How did you think of this new platform?
I mean, it's the next step, right? Like on the battlefield, whoever has the most information and then has the command and control structure to execute as quickly as possible has a really big advantage compared to someone who's got a large bureaucratic apparatus that's meant to just slow things down. So as an example, one of the key things is when you have information and intelligence coming to you, how do you organize it so that it's something something that you can present to a battlefield commander and let them make a decision very quickly? I know in the past a lot of stuff was done via something like PowerPoint. So if you were planning a mission or you're trying to do stuff, it was literally like you're doing a PowerPoint, you're doing X, Y, and Z, and by the time that you got all your planning done, the target had already moved on. So you kind of need a system like this to conduct warfare in the modern sense. And yeah, I think Palantir is doing a good job in figuring out the use cases behind these LLMs, because that's the thing that I think a lot of people are kind of missing, where everyone is excited about AI, but you have to also know where you're going to integrate it into, whether your workflows at work, your organization, business operations, and then being able to combine it with other features that Palantir has that lets you actually execute that specific thing. So as an example, and I'm going to take a step back from the battlefield and just put one into corporate America. If you see you're running low on inventory, you can say to your thing, like, which sites have low inventory? And it'll bring up all the sites that have low inventory. Okay, restock inventory, create delivery orders for everything that has low inventory. You see, like 2 prompts, and I'm already getting my entire day done. I'm not going to every site, looking at which sites have low inventory. I'm not literally doing the granular motions of everything. It's literally just one question, one answer, one question, one answer, and it solves a lot of things. The question that I have is, how complicated would this be to integrate into certain businesses? And like what kind of work, like what kind of workflow would have to be adopted to get this, because I feel like a lot of this stuff would be really nice to have in the, after a while. But I wonder how much of this actually, how long it takes to actually integrate your entire business to be able to do something like that. So it's
Chris,
nice.
let me ask you a question. You were kind of
Yeah.
skeptical when the thing came out because you said they were kind of late. Other companies are doing it. Did the defense version of it increase your potential of thinking it can succeed in commercial America because of the synergies there, or do you still think
No,
commercial is going to be hard to sell because of
I
competition?
think commercial is still going to be hard to sell for them. I think the military side, they won't have a problem. Like I don't know if there's any other major defense contractors that are directly making maybe they have subcontractors that can provide certain services like this, but as far as I can tell, they're probably the top company that's going to be able to benefit from this. On the commercial side, I know that there's a ton of companies right now working on projects to do exactly what we're talking about right now. The question is, do they have the other key pieces necessary? So here's a question. So here's the thing, like, let's say I have a data warehouse, I get all my data fed into it. I can ask a question like, hey, where am I running low on inventory? The problem is they don't have mechanisms where you can do like where you can actually order the other thing through, like I said with Palantir, right? Where they can't say, okay, restock everything that has low inventory. They won't. I don't know if the LLM has the ability to do that, where they go into individually each ERP system or CRM system and then make all the things happen. Where I know Palantir does because they have Hyper Auto. So yeah, and maybe Matt can speak about that, because Matt has actually operational experience where basically it's not only gathering data, but then being able to action that data. So you're actually able to take actions against that data. I don't know if that's something that you have, Matt, but that'd be something curious to talk about.
Yeah, I think so. Hello, everybody. Sorry, 7 minutes in. I'm just finally saying hello. So yeah, I think I don't want to reiterate what Arnie and Chris have already kind of said. I think they've alluded to a lot of the things that I wanted to kind of highlight specifically. But I think that this is a natural, and I'll rephrase it slightly, but that I want to highlight something that I think is something that we've discussed throughout the last 69 episodes. But I guess I've only really been a part of 40, but I'm sure it's been mentioned before I was even a part. But I think it's a natural progression. Like, it doesn't feel like it's something that's rushed. I feel like that this is a natural step in inclusion of all the different softwares that have already been kind of four lane. And so it's like, I feel like that this is part of the actual frame of the house, right? Where I feel like Foundry is a part of the foundation. Gotham has been part of the foundation, and some of these other opportunities and software pieces have been part of the foundation. And I feel like now, and you kind of alluded to this earlier a bit before we went live, it's like, I feel like this is actually part of the bulk of what's actually going to propel Palantir into being kind of like a household name, or at least really take things to the next level. Because in the past, I think what's truly been lost on people is like, oh, well, Foundry, it's just storing data like Excel stores data, and Gotham, it's like, well, it's a user interface, like, being able to, people didn't really grasp the nature of being able to have these differentiated products. But the thing that I think that is truly powerful that is being built on this, and this is probably going to lead up to the complications that I see kind of coming from this, is the ability to, as much as the NHS and the UK like to say, it doesn't segment data and people don't have public access to it. It's very good about segmenting data, making sure proper people have the right access and other people do not, coupled with being able to access public data and combine those opportunities to be able to look and do forecasting and make options available to you. And I think that it's just a natural progression. It's not anything that's just like been forced and been like, oh, well, it's the talk of the town. I feel like it's something that has probably been worked on for quite some time at Palantir, and I think it's really just time to unveil it. The thing that I think is going to be most difficult is a lot of what I've already discussed for many, many times, is if you don't have a good culture around being wrong in your organization, I don't think that they're going to do well with Palantir. And what I mean by that is like we've talked about just with Foundry and Gotham, the level of being able to visualize your data and not tell stories within your organization anymore. Let the data actually come to the top and tell you what exactly is going on. I think that is going to be amplified by AIP, because it's not going away, right? You still have to set up the guide rails for where you're operating within, the regulations of where you want this AI piece to work within. And I think a lot of it is going to, I guess, be strange and scary for a lot of people, just like, using Foundry and Gotham was as a whole. And there was another piece that I kind of wanted to highlight as well. I think that still it amplifies the need for somebody like Palantir to kind of come in and sit, because I think what people still get lost on is just like, and somebody said this the other day, they were like, oh, Palantir has like, it was like 100 applications. And how awesome is that they have 100 applications? And I was like, I get that. But at the same time, it's like Palantir is legitimately like, yes, Foundry, Gotham, cool. Those are pieces of software. But what Palantir actually does, they come into your organization and they sit with you and they say, what are your problems? They don't say, here's Foundry, here's Gotham, go. They say, what are your problems? And that's what, like, remember a year ago, everyone was like, Palantir's a consultancy. Why the hell, is a consultancy going to do? It's like, no, it's a consultancy collaborated with a software company. That's something that at least I've never really seen in person be done before, which is they sit there, they say, what are your challenges? Let's build applications custom for you. How can we best make your the backbone of what you're doing work off of Foundry, work off of Gotham, operating systems that we can kind of use as a guide rail and create applications that feed into Foundry and Gotham, which are the operating systems that we're going to be using. And now you're putting on top of it the ability to do what Chris is saying, put some guide rails on it, understand your business. It's really going to be speaking to how much inefficiencies we have in organizations and being able to trim out all the different layers of fat where people have truly just been hiding things within. And that's not saying people are inherently evil. Like, I'm not trying to say like people are intentionally hiding fat. It's just like people have their focus on so many different 18 different things. If they truly set up the guide rails appropriately and take it step by step, look at the data, understand and peel back every layer of the onion, think of how much efficiency we're going to be able to gain, even like a 5% efficiency. And some of these organizations that are making, let's just say, for example, Amazon gets a 5% efficiency bump on their $500 billion e-commerce business. That's $25 billion. Like, you start to understand why the intricacies of all these things is going to be so massive going forward. And truly, like, it's been part of the reason in the back of my head, like, I honestly think if you connect all the dots and you have all these custom software applications, that is not like what you're getting with Microsoft and not like what you're getting with Google. That's why I foresee it being $1 trillion company. But anyway, 5-minute, 6-minute soliloquy, but hopefully that was kind of like a...
So one thing I just want to touch on is the approach that Palantir has and the approach that something like Snowflake has. This is the key differentiator, where Snowflake provides the infrastructure necessary to do what we're talking about, but then they have partners in the ecosystem that already have pre-existing relationships that do what we're saying, like Data Robot, Data IQ. These are smaller companies that are at the startup level that Snowflake, through Snowflake Ventures, has taken a stake in an equity position. But at the same time, Snowflake is the one that ultimately benefits, right? So as an example, Palantir will come into your organization and they'll do everything to help you set everything up and everything, just like Matt said. The problem is that limits you as well in terms of how many customers you can actually capture and how many customers are doing things. And then you also have to pay for employees to do all the integration work and everything. Whereas Snowflake is kind of just like, no, it's fine. We have all these other partners that we have that can provide these kinds of services that you need. And then you could just partner with them. And basically that's how I think Snowflake and Databricks, their solutions are a lot more scalable than something like Palantir. And so I think that's one of the key weaknesses of Palantir. Even if Palantir has a better product, if they do a terrible job at the sales part of it and figuring out how to do an effective go-to-market strategy, it's their business to lose.
Well, but it is exactly because Palantir solves a problem while other companies just sell a product that you can't go and distribute it in the same way. Because if you actually need to solve a problem, it means that the company with the existing tools was not able to solve that problem. So you need to sit with them and say, okay, we will use our software, now empowered also by LLM, to actually solve business problems, while Snowflake per se doesn't solve a problem.
Yeah, no, that's go ahead, Chris.
I don't think that's 100% true. Snowflake does definitely solves problems. Otherwise, you wouldn't have as many organizations using them. Okay, like
so this
yeah.
is
No.
coming from
It's
a place
also
of
the problem of storing the data and related things. But if a company at a high level needs to do a strategic decision, you don't go on Snowflake. You need Snowflake to have the data there, but it's not something that helps you steering the direction of the company. It's a tool.
Exactly. So this is I don't know. This is coming from a place of ignorance, right? All I know is my experience at Palantir. They sat with us for 18 months to be able to develop the applications that we are now using. And we are also embedding and having a team specifically focused on creating applications within Palantir, to the point where it's not like hey, here's a ready off the shelf. I don't know. And this is coming from a place of ignorance, because like legitimately, I don't know. I don't know if it's something like that with Snowflake, where there's a consultancy part of what they're doing, or is it like, hey, here's the ready-made off-the-shelf applications that we have, please use it in your business. Same thing with Databricks. I don't know.
Well, I think here's the thing
with Palantir is that it's like you've kind of noted, like they will go into your business and give you the opportunity to use it, infiltrate it, and put it into your infrastructure so it is the operating system for your business, and say, look, like, this is where you're going to see the magnitude changes. What problems are you trying to solve? And literally try to change the culture of your business. I don't know if Snowflake, like I said, I'm coming from a place of ignorance. I don't know if Snowflake, Datadog, Databricks, all these guys.
I don't think they are doing that. That doesn't mean they can't be a big business, which is why Chris loves them so much, because they're so scalable, right? You can't scale 18 months of consultancy with a company. However, if we're talking about value proposition, not even mentioning Snowflake's ridiculous valuation, it's just a question of what are you actually investing in, right? This is why when Karp says the steak dinner thing, I think we have to believe him when he says this stuff, right? If you're saying there's the BP interview where the guy said we had to buy 1% of the company because of how much it transformed our business. Like they're not buying 1% of Snowflake. They might use Snowflake, they might use Databricks, they might use Datadog, but they're not. So I think the question is that scalable? And if it is, then I don't think this is a conversation here. As of now, it's not been scalable.
So
right?
So we've started to integrate Databricks into our organization as well. But where do you think the data that Databricks is going to reference is coming from?
Palantir.
So
from your organization, right?
Yeah, but it's stored in Foundry.
Gotcha.
Basically, it's connected data lake to Foundry, and then Databricks has the opportunity to connect up to what we have already kind of stored within Foundry. But it goes to show you, it's like, if you give a company, like give somebody that doesn't have a Microsoft Excel some Microsoft Excel, and they're basically just going to unknowingly continue to do what they've been doing, just maybe in a slightly more organized manner. And you can get some efficiencies with that. But will you get to like, say you have a company that's exactly like Tyson Foods, and it's just like, well, we're not seeing $100 million efficiency. We're seeing like a $5-10 million efficiency. Is that just because we're better than Tyson Foods, or is it because we're using, and I'm not saying this is the example or I have numbers or anything, I'm just coming up with a kind of thought process. Is it because we're just being more efficient with the same company culture that we've kind of been going on, and we need to actually have a step change? We need to incorporate how we use data in our business. And that's where somebody like that might initially, and Karp says this a lot, whether or not it's actually true, whether they go with a Snowflake or whether they go with a Databricks, and then they're eventually like, this isn't the step change in efficiency that we thought we were going to. We really need to figure out from an IT perspective and from a long-term perspective, how we actually integrate data to solve problems within our organization. We need that extra step. We need that extra consultancy from a computer scientist, from a forward development engineer, to help us redirect the ship, and then put us on a, hey, this is what data can do for your organization. And also, if you use this as an operating system, the massive step changes can come in. That's where you have the conversations like where BP's like, we need to buy 1% of the company because it's that transformational.
And that to me is go ahead, Arnie. You got it.
Well, to me, it seems that all this LLM thing doesn't basically empowers the value proposition of Palantir, which is not providing the applications, but fitting both in the infrastructure layer. So having the data foundation, which is the ontology that makes sure that when you refer to a data, that the data is actually true and that the digital twin perfectly matches the organizational structure. This means if you have a right foundation, you can build applications on top of that. But Palantir is not neither focused on that application because they provide some applications, but they want to integrate all the other applications out there. And they want to control also the other extreme. So they control the infrastructure with the data foundation and the user interface. Those two layers are the layers where most value is built because the infrastructure is what you truly need to actually do stuff with your data. And the user interface is what actually helps the company do stuff.
Right.
You want not only the data scientist actually creating value for the company, but you want all the people creating value for the company. And this actually helps unlock the network effect that are needed also to grow at scale. While a company like Snowflake will always need to have this constant push of salespeople because people talk between data scientists, but you don't have people that are not data scientists actually excited to work on that. So LLM basically working in a way that you want AI in your company. Now you want LLM in your company. How you do that? Well, it's not only about having the model, which is an application. You need the data foundation. That is the ontology. So my speculation is that these are products that in reality, Lord Grimm shared that have been trademarked already last year. So it's not something rushed. AIP was trademarked in 2022. So it's not something that
what's new is the chat interface. They've been doing this for a while, right? But when ChatGPT came out, they were like, all right, let's steal this interface and let's actually put it out into the market.
I've seen the magic word, user interface. So you have the ontology, infrastructure, and you have the user interface. This way, if you are the user interface, you are the one making the connection. And this actually empowers the brand of Palantir. So going forward, I think this is the application that can really make companies understand, hey, we need to do this. In order to do this, we need to have an ontology and therefore everything that is related to it. There was a very old post on Facebook, 2008 or so, talking about the structure of the system, the operating system. And they said, look, Windows, if they didn't have some killer apps that went viral, wouldn't have been Microsoft. You need those killer apps in order to make people understand that they need the infrastructure. And Microsoft, Windows was the infrastructure. And in the same way, Palantir with the ontology is providing the infrastructure in order for businesses to make the LLM actually operational and trusty in their business, because we know the problem with LLMs is that they confidently tell you an answer, but unless you have an ontology, you can't know that that answer is true. With the ontology telling you, hey, this is exactly the representation of the reality, you can always match, okay, this is what the model say, this is the reality. You have that check. Without it, you would be fooled easily. And you can't be fooled when your life is on the line.
Right. And I think the LLM and the conversations that's happening around that is the embodiment of when Karp says we're building products for companies for problems that they don't know they're going to have. It's just a question. We know the tech makes a lot of sense, especially with how Palantir is doing it. And the defense AIP video was just a really good example of that. The question is sales. And I think this transitions us to the next conversation, which is kind of what Chris has been talking about. Some Glassdoor reviews have come out on Palantir, basically saying the sales leadership is fucked. They have no idea what they're doing. Doesn't make any sense. There's just tons and tons and tons of complaints. Now, I talked to some pretty high-level people in sales organizations, so I'll give my thoughts, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Do you think this is an actual concern? Do you think these sales folks are kind of just salty or something and they left some bad reviews? And do you think there's a problem that can be fixed? Because as Arnie said for the past 5 minutes, talking about the LLM infrastructure, all of that makes sense. But if you can't sell it, then it's a really hard issue. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on those reviews?
I agree with them. They're the real reviews.
No, we
I
know
mean,
you agree with them, but do you think it's
Yeah.
an issue? That's the question.
Yeah, it's
As
a
in,
big
can-
issue. If
well,
you,
can
if
it-
you can't,
Can it be solved? Because that's the question, right?
yeah, it can be solved. You need good leadership on the sales side to be able to sell this product. I mean, how do I best describe it? I mean, from my experience when it comes to Palantir sales, it's a very shotgun-like approach. That's like the salespeople don't really know how they're going to come in and sell this product to the customers. The pricing model seems weird. Yeah, and I think they're going to struggle with sales. I mean, you can make the best product, but if you can't sell it, it's not helpful. You know, there are a lot of complaints to be had about Palantir when it comes to their sales. Someone wrote, I wrote the review.
The reason
No,
I'm saying this is because
yeah.
I don't think it's a big deal at all. I really do not think it's a big deal. I mean, the Glassdoor, like the sales executive I talked to, like literally on Twitter 2 days ago, he was like, anyone who looks at Glassdoor reviews for their investment thesis on sales in a company is a fucking idiot. They're like, no one gives a shit about that. These things can be fixed. And when you got a product going semi-viral on Twitter because the product is theoretically selling itself, right, in terms of brand awareness, that's really important. Karp also did say in his shareholder letter today that demand is growing. I mean, he says right here, first look at the platform can be here. Every large organization in the world is capable towards this. And we are seeing, what did he say? The demand we are seeing from the market for this new platform reflects the depth of the unmet need within institutions for intelligent and effective enterprise software. So I guess the question becomes, do we believe that demand is high enough for them to be able to fix sales and figure it out? Or do we think we're going to have years and years of just crappy sales leadership? Matt,
Well, I
or
think
Arnie, go ahead.
this difficulty is here and evident, but not something that Karp was not aware of. There was an old clip saying, basically what we are trying to do is making the impossible, trying to fit a very strong engineering culture with we will have to learn sales. Typically, these things don't fit together. So trying to match those is like another mission impossible, like building a new product that works. And as I agree with you that is relatively a smaller problem because it is more a matter of finding the right people that could actually deal with engineers. The usual salesperson is more used to the fact that I go around, I close big deals, I get paid, and so on. With Palantir, is not really like that, exactly for the reasons we said before, that Palantir doesn't sell a product, sells the output. And in reality, who actually solves the problem is not the salesperson, but the engineer. So that's why you have this friction that is actually very strong, because maybe the salesperson generates the lead, but actually the person who solves the problem, who has more interaction with the client than it is the engineer, from what I see. So it is normal to have this friction, and I would say it is exacerbated by the fact that now the stock is relatively down. Everyone is more pessimistic, and also with the reviews, you are more prone to write a review when everything doesn't went well. So this is to be said. Now, is it a real problem? I would say is not pleasant, but on the other hand, we have a company that is still acquiring clients. It is growing around 20% despite all of this. So ServiceNow, if you take up the comparison, is like Palantir that does everything that theoretically should be done, and it is also appreciated by Wall Street. The execution there is very good. They are growing like 25% with a 30% margin. That's crazy. That's basically the dream case for Palantir. Their salespeople are excellent. The review on Glassdoor are excellent. Yet, if you look at the statistics that I saw in terms of usage, it means that they sell more than what the clients actually use. They use utilization rate of ServiceNow products is actually quite low compared with the number of products they give. This means that the company is already operating at full potential.
Right.
The sales is excellent. The operating machine is excellent, which means that you can't really go further than that. You just keep that line. With Palantir, on the other hand, we have a company that has been growing like 30% in the past, basically with no sales. So engineers making sales, fun. And now the company is keep acquiring clients at around 50% growth and growing top line, so revenues around 20%, despite the problems in sales. This, to my eyes, means not a great picture in the short term, because actually there's a problem. There is still something that needs to be fixed. But I think by watching the company close as we are doing, we can clearly see that there is a change in shift in how well they do stuff, both from the communication from high level and the communication in the product. Because if these clips of Palantir IP defense went viral, it means that they were structured in a way that make you say, whoa, I need to be shared this.
Well, Arnie, I want to just bring up one thing. And I think it's important that what we see in sales promotion may not exactly be the exact output that comes out of these products. Like, I've seen Palantir commercials where things are super great. They look amazing on piece of paper. Like, we can do X, Y, and Z. The question is, what does it take to get to that point, right? I'm starting to somehow have doubts on the product itself. And let me take a step back and just be very upfront about it. You know, maybe the completed version, after everything that has to happen, all the iterations that have to happen, all the people on the ground that they have to train, like Matt right now, maybe the end product is amazing, but the amount of time, effort, energy that it takes to get there is going to be a big challenge. And maybe that's coming from a shitty product perspective, which is honest. Like, that's the truth. Because if this was not a shitty product, sales, like not having good sales, like not having a lot of salespeople wouldn't make a difference, because then everyone would be coming to you requesting it anyway. Maybe this is a product problem. Maybe this is a product market fit problem, right? I think we've given this whole thing a little bit too much credence and say Palantir Foundry is the best. We've never second guessed that. And maybe it's time that we start second guessing that, to say, look, if businesses are not using it and operating it all the time, you know, and not continuously going out and it's not growing, you think Palantir hasn't run pilots with like hundreds of companies? And I don't know what the adoption rate, because I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's not going to be reported personally. You'd have to do like some really in-depth research. But I wonder if the product is actually the problem. You know, has anyone even questioned that part out of the equation?
I would say, there's one thing I want to say. So we transitioned to a different piece, but one thing I want to step back and say very succinctly, it was said over the course of 10 minutes between two different people, but I want to make it very succinct. The reason why the salespeople are having a problem is because they're selling a culture and they're not selling an actual piece of off the shelf piece of software. So of course they're going to get upset. Arnie said that very explicitly. Of course they're going to get upset because it's untraditional to have some salesperson do that, and it's an unconventional company to sell for, right? So of course your salespeople are going to drag you under the mud and drag your name in the mud for that reason, because they have trouble changing and getting that culture of Palantir in themselves, right? And then going into what you kind of said, Chris, it's like, to me specifically, it's like I've been very thorough about saying you're not picking up a piece. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Maybe it's me that maybe I'm like Palantir. Maybe I'm the one that's messed up. But the thought that I have is just like, when you pick up the product, it's not about just picking up a piece of software and being able to just get your hands into it and within an hour you're up and running. You legit have to change the way that your company thinks, operates, and like you said, maybe that's not okay for some people. And if that's the case, then maybe Snowflake and what's the other one? Databricks is more up your level if you just want to keep doing what you're doing and make it a little bit more efficient. But if you're honestly looking for, hey, we've been at this, let's just say you have some legacy company that have been around for 50 to 100 years. It's like, we want to honestly integrate a digital transformation within our organization and truly take that step change and build ourselves, take the data that we get on a day-to-day basis and integrate it into our culture and have that transformational shift. That is Palantir. And so that piece is whether or not they want to make that transition or not. It might take some people some time to get there, and Karp says that very explicitly. But I think, what you're eventually going to see is a longer adoption of people making this sort of transition, whether it happens today, whether it happens 5 years, 15 years from now. And whoever does take that transition of not just making, the way I view it is this way. Databricks and Snowflake are just the new version of Microsoft, right? They're the old way of kind of keeping your enterprise the way that it was going, just slightly more efficient, right? With all the data streams that are kind of coming in, organize everything. The thing that differentiates Palantir is that it's actually allowing you to make things a lot more integrated and a lot more basically like integrating with the AI piece and everything like that's just the foundational piece. That's going to be able to help you make decisions faster, efficient. It's not just going to be some sort of piece that allows you to eventually make the decision. Now, I feel like it's a very minute, different piece about it, but I think it's that true step change that I think truly is what's going to make Palantir a way better opportunity in the long run. Just like how I'm sure Microsoft wasn't always the number one person within, the PC space or within the software space. It was eventually, well, I guess Microsoft never really sold PCs until more recently, but in the software space, I'm sure Microsoft took them forever, but it was how they basically adapted and bought and stole in some cases and made it the best integrated product that eventually made them win. I think Palantir is going to be the one that eventually comes out on top because it's not just selling some sort of off the kit ready piece of software. They're going to build whatever you want. They're going to ask you what you need. And it might take people longer to get there. But I think in the long term that's the way that some of these companies need to operate. And a lot of times, like if you think about it, I think about this quite a bit. It's like, think about some of the cultures that need to honestly be disrupted. And you're thinking about like real estate. You're thinking about banks. You're thinking about oil companies, the things that they've just been sitting on their laurels. They're mature businesses that are able to just crank out huge margins. And it's like, well, to be very frank, like some of these things need an honest shakeup and to be able to like get themselves to the next level and honestly kick themselves back into growth mode and figure out and make things more efficient. Like you go to for example, it's not exactly like for like comparison, but you go to some of these banking websites, you still feel like you're in the 1990s. Like that opportunity for this digital shift is there. And I feel like you're not going to get that with just an off the shelf piece from, Snowflake or from Databricks, right? I feel like you have to have an actual culture shift within your organization to truly get there.
Well, if I can just add a simple thing on top of this, what you brilliantly said is the fact that Palantir has so many clients, actually 20 clients that have an average of 40, 50 million per year, and 3 clients that have an average of 100 million per year. That is basically more than the top clients, ServiceNow, Salesforce, which are the biggest B2B. We don't know about Microsoft, are around. This means that the value proposition that can be achieved is truly massive because Palantir is one fraction of the size of these other 2 companies. So the value proposition is there. The product actually works. But if it is not a matter of product, it is a matter of culture. The culture can't be gradually shifted when you have direct interaction. But it's like, this makes me think of Tesla. Initially, you saw the product is good, but you can talk to few niche that is already shifted in terms of perception. Hey, I can actually buy an electric car. But in order to go truly mass market, you need the culture outside to naturally change with time. So Palantir probably will start having a mass product when the average culture inside the company will accept, hey, we need to shift the way we do stuff.
I just want to say a couple of things. Number one, there's two arguments that lead to my shitty product thesis. Number one is who's got mic on right now? Because I hear the background. Oh, there you go. Tell me it. Number one is the SPAC deals. They literally had to go out and get customers to use them, and they had to pay for customers to use them. At this point, that's like a no-brainer. Everyone knows they took SPAC investments. They put money into them. They had the SPACs use the product X, Y, and Z. Some of them, of course, that failed miserably, but that was one thing. So if they had unlimited demand for their product, they wouldn't have had to go the SPAC route where they were putting money into a company to have them use their product. That's one thing right off the bat that leads me to say, you know what, maybe that thesis holds true, that they don't have a great product to begin with, and it's going to take a lot more to get people to utilize it. So that would be number one. And number two, they're still behind a closed door. Like, I want to be able to use this product. I want to be able to learn how to use this product. I want to get this in people's hands. The fact that they're so closed about it and saying, no, you have to contact sales, we have to work with you to do this. No, put it out there. Do a sandbox. Let people integrate it and see what it is, and then figure out a way to generate interest. The fact that they keep a closed door on their technology, and also in terms of employees not talking about it outside of the promo videos, that's the other thing. Like, it's just not a thing that I'm seeing with that. If you ask,
Chris, doesn't that speak to the fact that the product is actually so interesting, good, mysterious, whatever you want to call it? Like,
no,
like that to me, just like maybe I'm naive about it, but I'm like, I want to invest in something that isn't that out there, because then it becomes like everything else.
No,
then
because
there's no interest in it.
No, because if you want unlimited marketability and scalability, you put it out there. See, that's the key right there. If it's a good product, you put it out there, people are going to adopt it. People are going to love it.
So let me be a contrarian. If Snow or Databricks helped them, do you think they'd be massively successful companies today?
What do you mean?
Well, you're talking about how garbage the product is, and and if that the reason why the SPAC investment didn't turn out well is because maybe it didn't really help out. Based off having an operating system based off of Foundry, and like, do you think that Snow or would have helped?
I think no. I think a shitty company is a shitty company, no matter what software you apply to it. The fact that you have
the argument shouldn't be valid about talking about Palantir either. I mean, but that's investment. But
that's what I'm trying to say. That if you have a shitty company, right, you need to pay them to use your product.
I think SPAC was a business mistake. I like, everyone acknowledged that was a mistake. I don't think that could be like.
I don't think it's a reason product. It's a venture capital problem, not a.
No. I
it was
think
a bad business decision, and Sham got demoted for that, and they took it as a loss. But companies, Amazon released a phone one. Like, companies make stupid mistakes, but
no. I mean, that's fine, but that's what I'm trying to say to you guys is that if they had enough interest, they wouldn't even had to go into the route of getting these SPACs to adopt, to take money in the first place and adopt Palantir Foundry as their operating platform.
But again, I think that's the problem with sales. Like, in 2020, they had 2 people on sales. So of course they had to pay these SPACs and do some stupid, but that doesn't speak to I don't see the correlation.
No, I don't think so, man.
I still think
you're just reaching for that one.
The SPACs weren't like, oh, let's invest in a bank, or they were legit long-term plays. I've seen in the comment section, I agree with Holy. It's like they were long-term plays in EV charging, WeGo,
electric
whatever.
jets. I mean,
all these really far-fetched sort of things where it's like you're creating applications for things that are likely to be used in the future. To be honest, I view that as an opportunity to invest long-term and things that are actually going to be used. Like, if you want a healthcare company, you're not going to invest in a SPAC healthcare company. Like, I don't think they did, right? I mean, I think they were investing in things that were complex because they wanted to be successful in, say, 1 or 2 or 3 of these multiple SPAC investments. But
and Chris, like Cleveland Clinic, Tampa Bay General Hospital, Cardinal Health, I feel like there's too many examples for you to say the product sucks. Like, yes, sales, I agree with you.
No, individually, maybe some organizations are getting tremendous value out of it, but it may not be every organization. I mean, every organization is different.
That's a sales problem.
But no.
Every problem is not a product problem.
it is a product problem, because if you cannot do mass market without a lot of twinking, it's
Chris, that's
I don't.
sales. You're literally defining sales right now.
But that's what I'm trying to say, that if you have a product that's not scalable to the way that you're going to be able to generate that much business, then yeah, you have a product problem. You don't
I
have a
see you're
sales
making
problem.
I see how you're making the link. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, the product is scalable once it is inside the company. It is not scalable right now in the way it enters the company. But I think there is also a reason why. We said before, Palantir as a culture sells the output, and you can't sell an output mass market, because if the mass market solution was already there, it means that the problem is actually a stupid problem, not a crucial problem the company needs to solve.
Chris, what was the second point you're going to make?
I think that was the second point. The one was they had to pay people to get them to use it via the SPACs. That was number one. And number two is they're not openly putting their product out there for people to try and demo. So, if you look at OpenAI, right? Like ChatGPT, we know that's a good product because they put it out there to the world. Said, here you go, guys. And what happened? Exploded in
It's a
terms of
consumer product.
Yeah, that's a consumer
Right.
product versus the private enterprise piece of Palantir, right? I mean, Palantir is very specific about keeping private data within the right hands. Like, what kind of consumer product do you think they could use?
They're not a
that's
consumer company.
truly-
They can't release
It's not.
something.
It's not. So we're thinking too much like, okay, consumer. There are
Well, no, I think
enterprise-
that's your
Yeah.
problem. That's why you're like thinking.
No,
I
no,
think
but see,
that's-
there are enterprise products out there, right? That you can actually put out there in a freemium version so people can use it. Like, here's an example, Tableau. Okay, Tableau is the perfect example of a product that's built for the enterprise, but they also put it out so that you can use Tableau as a consumer to learn how to use it and get used to it, right? So that this way it becomes like, okay, yeah, this is a product that actually works. It's great. I love it, So same thing when I look at a lot of software, they put it out into the ether in a way that, there is a taste of the stuff that you're going to get. And then after that, if you want to get an enterprise license for it, it's going to cost you. But the initial, hey, get in there, start using the product. Like, here's an example, a Foundry instance. Why not just let people get a Foundry instance and try this stuff out? Take data, put it in there, segment it off into like its own little sandbox, let people try it, let people demo it, right? And then if they want more users to have access to your Foundry instance, that's where you can charge people to say, look, you want enterprise license? There you go. You've shown interest in Palantir Foundry. Here it is. They've never given out Palantir Foundry, but to some YouTubers and CodeStrap. And CodeStrap loved it. So the one argument that is always going to shoot me down, and I know I shoot it down myself. If someone like CodeStrap, who's worked in this industry for a long time, says it's a good product, that throws my entire thesis out the door. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to at least have it on one of the sides of my analysis, right? So as an example that I'll give you is, if it was such a great product, why not put it out there for the rest of the world to use in a freemium version, a limited, let's say, time release version, and then
What
have some
would you
white
release?
papers on it.
What would you release? One single feature, the full stack? What exactly would you release?
I would release it as a Foundry instance, the same way that they were able to give access to CodeStrap. Give that access to whoever wants to try it. Okay, you can limit it. You can put some guardrails around it so that this way, if you want the higher level of functionality, it's going to charge you. If you want access, like let's say AD access, which is Active Directory access, where you have like integrated systems where you have multiple users logging in and doing X, Y, and Z, you can charge after that. So you have an enterprise license, because that's what we do. We buy software, but we buy it as an enterprise license. We don't just buy like off the shelf, just one single piece of thing. But here's the thing, I can usually go and demo that product and try it out and everything else. And then after that, if we want to if we want the entire enterprise to use it, which is exactly what Palantir needs, you're going to have to pay for an enterprise license. So that's where I think that there might be some
is, though,
issues.
and I try to understand, like, maybe this is just my bias because I've been using it with like hundreds of thousands of data points that come in daily, right? I couldn't see myself using it personally. Like, what am I going to do? Store like a shopping list at the grocery store in Foundry? Like, I don't see a use for it personally in my life, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but
I could see
Matt,
from
you're not a developer. You're not an AL, ML scientist. You're working at the back end of it. I'm saying right now for people that are AL, ML scientists, for people that are actually building products,
Okay.
you can go to Snowflakes, you can go to Databricks. They have free
Yeah.
versions out there that you can use. You can learn how to use it. You can build stuff on top of it. You can work with partners so that this way now you have more people that know what this product actually is. And half
That's
the
all.
time,
So I'm not saying you're wrong, right? Because
Mhm.
like you said, I'm a very end user of it, and so I don't really have like the integration piece. And so like while I've used the product, I'm not the best person to talk to. I'm not a code strap, right? Like he's actually used it very like from the ground up. Like I generally use the applications after they've been made and they've been tailored to have a user interface that I interact with, right? So it's not like I'm building stuff from scratch. So very good point on your end. But like my question is like, what is Foundry for builders? Like, isn't that supposed to be the opportunity for like the freemium version to be able to go in? And what about the Microsoft Azure like $1 sort of entry fee that they've kind of put on the store? Like I'm just trying to understand. Like I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm asking questions not to push back, but rather for my education.
No, he's saying you're wrong.
Well, I think
Yes.
it is absolutely wrong to keep using the framework with which you value Snowflake in terms of operations, which is the classical software company SaaS, with Palantir that is trying to do something completely different. There is a gradual cultural shift that is needed that we discussed before. And exactly because of that, you don't want your product to be mass spread when there is still shift that is needed, because in order to truly appreciate Palantir, you need to actually see solving a problem. If you just throw it to everyone, basically you are telling all your competitors, hey, this is exactly what we do, how we do, but you lose that output-driven component that is the key driver of what
Yeah,
Palantir
Chris,
does.
is there a luxury appeal to this? Like you don't let people just drive the Ferrari because then it doesn't, there's a feeling when you solve a problem for an organization. There's a feeling inside of a Lamborghini. And if everyone can drive it.
Yeah, but do you want to buy a Lamborghini, which is
Yes.
Ferrari, or do you want to buy? No. See, here's the thing: you're thinking as an end product user, like, yeah, I want to buy the Ferrari. I wouldn't want to buy a Toyota. But if you look at the market cap of Toyota versus a Ferrari, Toyota beats their ass.
Toyota's going to be dead in a couple of years. No one's going to care about them.
Okay,
I mean, they have like
that bad example. I'm trying to.
Ferrari's not going to be dead.
But I'm trying to tell you that you cannot use a luxury sports car to go to work every day, whereas what you need is a product that one is cost competitive that gets you to work every day. This is one of the bigger problems.
But you can't use the framework you use for Snowflake to think of the go-to-market of Palantir. That is a different product, a different way it is built and sold. So using the same framework is actually wrong.
Unless
I don't know.
The go-to-market could be the same.
That's going to be left to be seen at the after a while. I mean,
this is that Palantir always has the option of building something that could go viral. Let's say HyperAuto is seems potentially something that they could go and sell it to everyone. Foundry for builders. Obviously, that's the end goal, because if Palantir right now is capped, is because they have a certain number of forward deployment engineers, and each FDE has a limited capacity of, let's say, 10 clients per year to solve. With LLM, with Palantir becoming faster, this number will gradually increase. But you have a limited number of FDEs that can actually deal directly with the clients. With a product aimed for Foundry for builders, it is insane to think that Palantir will have unlimited FDEs in the way Snowflake has unlimited salespeople to actually go into each startup to waste time in solving a problem that for the startup is big, but for Palantir that is basically nothing. So Palantir for builders necessarily will be a more mass product, but in order to get there, you can't make it wrong, because if now Palantir has done this thing secretly and then now magically opens the gates to everyone and does it wrong, basically it's done as a company. So the option is there, They just need to be very careful and dropping it at the right time. But the fact that it is an option, and meanwhile you are actually still growing and reach the number of clients and revenue per client, to me is already telling. You always have the option. Like Amazon always has the option of spending less to generate free cash flow. The optionality thing is there.
Can you play the thing that I shared?
Do we have to listen to Slootman again?
Yes,
Do we
yes.
have to listen to him again?
Yeah.
All right.
Because he knows what he's talking about. He's run
Sales aren't ramping.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder what it could be if customers don't want the product. Oh, it's the VP of sales. It can't possibly be the product.
And then another VP of sales, and then another VP of sales. Why? Because that's not the problem. Your product sucks. Okay, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So,
and in Silicon Valley, unpack that a minute, because this is, being an investor in companies, I'm on board sometimes, and the founders are the product people, and then there's this sales team in some building somewhere in a boiler room who are not at the board meeting, and it seems like they're always up, and they're always the problem. And okay, flip. But then I see other organizations where, I'll be candid, like maybe this VP of sales does not feel particularly inspiring to me, but the phone's ringing off the hook and we're up and to the right and things are expanding and landing and lighthouse customers. What's this propensity to always blame the sales team versus the product team?
Well, the product's kind of untouchable, right? Because it's the founders, it's the golden child. It's what the investors invested in. They're sitting around the table. And it's like, Christ, this product is no good. I mean, that's a conversation. That's like facing your demons. That's like being intellectually honest now, right? It's like I'd rather go for an explanation that is easier to fix. I'm just going to flip out a VP of sales and find a better one, and we'll be off to the races. That's the explanation we want, but that may not be the explanation that is correct. And obviously, by the way, we see this in Silicon Valley all the time, right? I mean, they also start, hiring reams of salespeople when they can't even make a single salesperson productive. Now, why would you do that? Because you have an undying belief that, it's marketable, it's sellable. Well, we don't even know that yet. Okay. But
look, he makes a good point. I just don't. So, personally, I don't think the product sucks.
Yeah,
but he has a good
point. Can I just chime in? I think let me just break this down. So what is Snowflake trying to do?
Okay, first, let's not talk about Snowflake. Let's talk about Palantir.
No. This is because that's
the reason.
The reason why you brought it up is because you think that Snowflake is a better product. They can get it.
No. I'm not saying Snowflake is a better product. This interview was not about why Snowflake is better than Palantir.
The thing
is this is about sales versus product. That's what I'm trying to get at. That if people inherently want to blame sales as the main reason why things are not working, whereas if you really look, it could be the product.
Chris, they did $2 billion in revenue. $2 billion.
Can I ask a very serious question? Why do you think Apple was so successful? Because they cared about getting the product into people's hands, or because they cared about the product?
They wanted to get it into people's hands.
No,
that's what they did. It was a consumer.
They care about the product. And the product was so great that eventually got into the right people's hands, and eventually everyone noticed.
It didn't get into right people's hands. It got into everyone's brand. It got into everyone's hands.
Did that happen? Did that happen in 1978, or did that happen in 2008?
No, I mean, it depends on when they went to mass market, right? Now, here's the thing. It depends on the version of Apple we're talking about.
So
right?
What Slootman is talking about is we just need sales. We need to get the product out there. Like, is that the kind of company that for the long term you want to put your money into? Or
the reason Matt's making a good point here is because they spent 70% of their revenues on sales in 2022.
So like I said,
of course they're going to sell that shit if that's your ratio from price to sale. Like,
no. No matter how, so that's the key right there. No matter how much money you spend on sales, that doesn't necessarily translate into end user adoption. Okay. The point that Slootman is trying to make here, and that I'm trying to make with it, is not let's compare Snowflake to Palantir. Not at all. All I'm saying is if Palantir is not selling like gangbusters, we should be looking at the product itself. Hey, maybe this is not the golden child that we all thought it was. Okay.
I think in a year, that's correct. I give them a year to figure out sales.
I would say I'll give them 5. I'll give them 5 years. That's the point, that this company's been around for 20 years. Just think about 20 years. And they don't have
And who do
The
you think
ability
is
to
going to
go
be?
further.
So let me ask a very serious question. In 20 years, 30 years, who do you think is still going to be around? Do you think Snowflake is going to be selling the same exact product and everyone's going to be fat and happy? Or do you think that Palantir, the people that continuously make customizable software for whatever enterprise that you're working for, is going to be around? And let me ask secondary
I think Snowflake is going to kill it like
in the
crazy.
short
I
term.
think they're going to
In the
even in the
short
short term, medium term, long term.
Let
I
me
think
ask you a
Snowflake is gonna
question,
kill it.
like, because you and I when we talk about Palantir, you and I are talking a very different time horizons, right? And I think that could be the very fundamental difference in which you're very much like a let's get money through the door, let's get a trade, but you also have your investments, your long-term investments. Like, I know that, but I think when you look at things and your perspective is very much like a trader focus, like let's get the numbers through the door. To me, I used to be very much that way. I used to be very like, let's focus on the margins and let's get the things, let's sell as much product. But to me, what I've realized is the companies that truly make the long-term difference and truly be a foundational or cultural shift are the people that take their time. They invest in a why. They invest in a purpose. They're not just sitting there being like, let's just get the product out as soon as possible and in many hands as possible. They're focusing on, hey, enterprises have a need. Enterprises have a problem. Let's solve that and focus on the enterprise, right? They're not trying to get as much sales and as fast as possible. And it might not necessarily be the quickest economical from a standpoint, but in the long term, 20, 30, 50 years from now, you're going to be sitting there being like, well, I'm pretty certain that Palantir kind of knew what they were doing. They were able to create cultural shifts within all these organizations and put all these, but I don't foresee a Snowflake or a Databricks doing something like that. So while those products might be bridges to where people think they're actually getting these large efficiencies, in the long term, I think where they're going to eventually see these huge efficiencies happen in their organization is by going with somebody like a Palantir. And I think it's all dependent upon what kind of view and perspective you're looking at things. I'm looking at something like I think this is going to be a transformational shift in how business is done over the next 10 to 20 years. I'm not looking on a quarter-to-quarter basis, because what's been done on a quarter-to-quarter basis for Palantir was done 4 years ago after they acquired all these other contracts 4 years ago. Now they've gotten to the point where they went from, hey, let's get this client, to the stabilization point, to the expand phase, versus, hey, let's get as many clients in as possible today because we're really trying to get, it's like, Palantir is not operating that way. Palantir is literally, like we had in that video last night or 2 nights ago that they released, they're giving the software away to free to some people to just be able to say, hey, we're helping in any way, shape, or form.
That's a hell of a point,
And
Chris.
in the long term, that's going to get into more and more hands, brand recognition, build that aerial recognition and brand recognition. And eventually that slow eat and that moat will eventually be the thing that lasts the long term versus these people that are trying to shove something down your throat for this quarter.
Like,
but that's me, and that's my perspective, and that's my time horizon, right? It's very different from, say, a trader's time horizon.
Giving a product out to Ukraine for free, the newest one they did for war crimes, I mean, does that say anything to you, Chris, about how good the product is that they're not even going to charge for it because they know how fucking useful it is and they're kind of giving them
PR. They need the PR. There's no end.
Yes, they need the PR, but also it's like with Snowflake.
There are certain things.
No, but Snowflake can't give their product to free to Ukraine because they can't do anything in Ukraine. That's the point. I think that's Matt's argument about who's going to be around 10 years from now.
Some companies need to give out that kind of stuff to do free PR, so they're doing it.
Okay, Chris, let me ask you a question. Hold on. Why isn't Ukraine going to Snowflake for the same type of product?
Why didn't the US
I don't even know if they're involved. I don't even know.
Why didn't the US go to Snowflake to be able to get them out of Afghanistan?
No, but Chris, here's the point. If
turning.
Hold on.
You guys are turning.
Would be tweeting about it constantly because why wouldn't you want that PR? That
you guys are turning this into a Snowflake versus Palantir thing, and I'm not. I'm trying not to do that.
I'm trying to understand if the product is better or.
But no.
I'm not arguing about product being trash. If Palantir is open sourcing their product to a country that's in a war right now, why isn't the product that is better, that's selling more, because your definition is selling more equals better, which is Snowflake or Databricks? Why isn't that happening in Ukraine?
Okay, so
by the way, you could still be right about how they suck at sales. My point is just like when you say product sucks, it doesn't seem to make sense because the other companies aren't giving their product away for free.
What I'm trying to say is that number one, regardless whether or not Snowflake does well or not is not the point that I'm trying to make. I could care less. Like, well, because right now I don't have any shares of Snowflake. Okay. I sold mine when it got overvalued in a very short period of time, sold out, happy about it. I'm looking to get back in the 130s. So, I mean, I'm an investor in Snowflake, but I'm not going to do it at a valuation that's fucking absurd. Like, that's just not how I invest. So I'm not trying to advocate for Snowflake at all. All I'm trying to say is take one step back. And here's the thing. The fact that you guys went on the offensive against Snowflake versus actually introspectively looking at Palantir, the product, is the problem that I've seen constantly happen with so many people
Chris,
with
you can't
bias
frame the
now.
debate this way. We're using your argument about product versus sales. The
Right.
company, the interview you brought up of the guy saying if you have a shitty product, it can't sell. So don't blame sales, blame product. And then we're
Right.
taking a very real world example.
Right.
Two products, Palantir and Snowflake. Snowflake selling like
But-
hotcakes.
but
Palantir can't sell. But
Well,
which
number
one is
one,
more valuable? That is Matt's argument.
But you're trying to compare Snowflake, which is a commercial heavy product, to something that Palantir is actually geared towards the government side of things, right? That's the other thing. Like, Snowflake is not saying going to the military and saying, hey, we can give you data warehousing
Correct.
services.
But wouldn't that
and build
deny
you
your
products
argument
that way.
that the product is bad then?
No, because
Why?
the thing is, because there's other companies out there that are probably actual direct competitors to Palantir when it comes to the government space itself. You're trying to equate two different things to one nuanced problem and saying, look, which one is better? Which one is actually out there doing the work? I'm just trying to say that we need to be, as investors, look a little bit introspectively at our product itself. Don't just go based on blind faith of the CEO, which says, look, we have the best product out there. No one can question it. That's great. And then you look at the metrics that's actually happening, the KPIs that are coming out, and they're not that great. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm saying. Like, everyone right now,
That's fair.
the argument that this started with was the salespeople on their Glassdoor reviews, right? Were saying that, hey, listen, it's a shitty product. I can't sell it. Right? That was the argument that if we looked at those Glassdoor,
that's wrong. They didn't say it's a shitty product. They said
Well,
there's
they said
no
it was-
leadership of sales. There's no sales culture in Palantir.
right? But there's also, they criticize the sales product as well. The product itself as well. They didn't just say it's just the sales leadership. There's also a problem with the product. One of the other comments I saw was that what they're doing is basically taking your Rolodex. So basically, if you have experience with clients in the past, they hire you, they use you to get into their conversation with these other companies, and then that's it. And then they use you and lose you, So that's what I'm trying to say. That's a whole separate argument there. But my question is, why has no one actually taken a step back and criticized the product to say, hey, listen, why is there no freemium version out there? How come more companies aren't adopting it? Is a product a problem?
I would say the fact that we can see the outputs tells you about the validity of the product. What you're saying again is the product is good if it sells good. That's not something that strictly relates to the quality of the product. You are talking about the sellability of the product as if that is the quality of the product. The true quality of the product can be judged by the outputs. And we see outputs both related to clients and related to how things are internally developed. Why? Outputs to the world, vaccine distribution, the NHS, the war in Ukraine. These are true outputs for outside world. But there are also outputs from inside the world. What's the ability of Palantir to generate a new product with the existing products? How many products are actually built on top of Foundry from Palantir itself? Is this the case with Snowflake? Because so far, from what I see, Snowflake needs to keep acquiring companies. By their ability to develop new product, it seems to be quite limited. If you see the quality of the company through a different spectrum, you have the ability to generate a new product and the distribution. Snowflake is very good at the distribution, but so far is not really good at creating new product if they are already going through the M&A way. M&A way for a software company means, hey, we don't truly know how to build new products, or we need to acquire further customers. Palantir is growing without doing M&A for almost the entire life. They just did some little M&A here and there. I would say M&A is a sign of weakness.
I would say that is absolutely wrong because first and foremost, the fact that Palantir didn't have a sales team for 17 years of its life is stupid. Like, what CEOs, especially when you have one of the best venture capitalists on the planet, in his book says one of the most important things a business can have is a good sales culture and a good sales team. The people that can sell the product are going to be way different than the people that can found a product. It's literally in 0 to 1. It's an entire chapter.
Chris, you're right about this. You're right. I just think those 17 years, if it leads to a good product and we have to trade off with sales and then learn it on the back end, then I'm okay with that. I'm floored by the fact that they didn't have sales. And it comes down to criticizing Alex Karp in the CEO role, because I don't think this guy is the right person for the job. I'll say it, and I'll keep saying it. Yeah.
Like I said, I don't think
we got to move on. And Matt, you can say your topic as we get into this right here.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, like I said, I don't think Chris is wrong in anything that he's stating, right? I respect Chris, and I think he's one of the brilliant investors that we have on the panel, and not just on the panel, but also on Twitter. And like I said, it all just kind of goes back to perspective, right? And I think it all just goes to what you're looking for and what you're trying to build for the foundation, why you're investing in Palantir. And like, I had somebody say up in the comments, like probably half hour ago, they're like, I can't wait 10 years. It's like, okay, cool. Then maybe Palantir is not your company, right? Like maybe that's not your stock. And I get that. But I think a lot of times, like a lot of these things that we're talking about, like winning and doing it, it's like, you have to think like and I love Simon Sinek. I don't know if you guys listen to Simon Sinek a lot, but he's like a business consultant, and he talks a lot about, and it's not like a Simon Sinek specifically, it's something that he studied and he talked really well about. It was basically talking about finite and infinite games, and about like, well, when you're pitting companies against each other, it's exactly what Chris and I are talking about, and Arnie as well. It's like, you're saying who's winning, and it's like, well, who set the rules into business and say who's winning and who's not, right? Like, are you talking about net profit? Are you talking about more sales? Are you talking about more customer engagement? Like, what is the actual definition of winning in business? And to be very frank, the actual statement of winning is if your company's alive and floating, right? Like, who's going to be around the next 20, 30, 50 years? And that's really the only testament as to, like, because business is infinite. It's been alive longer than any of us have been, and it'll be alive longer than any of us will be, and beyond us. So who's to say, okay, they might be making more sales this quarter, but who's going to be creating more sales in the long term? And I saw a lot of people saying stuff about Ukraine and Afghanistan. It's like, well, how can the U.S. win if somebody's trying to just survive? Their nation's just trying to survive. The tribe is just trying to survive. Like, you have all these weird things. It's like, it's not about winning or losing. It's about surviving most of the time. But getting back to specifically what we were kind of talking about, if I remember quickly, what exactly I was trying to say. I lost my train of thought, but I think it was along the lines of, like, I think it's just dependent upon. I lost my train of thought, so we can move on. But I just wanted to kind of like throw that in there and say, like, I 100% agree with what Chris is saying. I'm just saying, somebody said specifically, and then I'll hand it back to you guys. Why can't you name anything other than Ukraine? Okay, cool. I'll name some other things other than Ukraine. Why is COVID vaccination distribution being used by Palantir? Why is the NHS looking at Palantir? Why is the Department of Defense continuing to go back to Palantir? Why is the Army going back to Palantir?
Lithuania.
Why is Lithuania? Why is the United States, many other countries across the world and NATO going towards Palantir? Why is Japan going towards Palantir? Why is South Korea going towards Palantir? Why is Hyundai Heavy Industries going towards Palantir? Why are all these different opportunities and heavy engineering focused organizations going towards Palantir and not something other than like Snowflake, Datadog, Databricks, all these other great products that are out there? And I'm not saying that those are garbage companies. I'm not trying to pit them against each other, but it's like, obviously there's a reason why they continue to sign on. If the product was garbage, they would have said, cool, we used it for 2 years. No, but they continue to use it. And like we said, it's not just a piece of software or an application, it's an operating system. So this is the underlying fundamental business and backbone of all these organizations that are being implemented. It is what the companies are operating on. Imagine the user interface that you log on to at the end of the day It's not like a, hey, let me open this up for an hour. It's literally where people sign on their terminal when they get into the business. And by the time they leave 8 hours later, they were only most of the time focusing on Palantir, their Foundry user interface, and then also Outlook, because obviously everyone has to send email. So it's like, that's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about using it for an hour a day or 2 hours a day. I literally have it constantly running throughout the day, looking at trends, looking at data that's constantly streaming. I don't have to go like refresh. It's literally just sitting there. And I'll write some emails, I'll do some stuff, I'll look back. Oh, okay. Like that's the sort of thing that we're kind of talking about here. Like, and your business is built around it. It's not like let me open up Excel really quick. Like, I don't think that people fully grasp what we're kind of like discussing. But anyway, I just wanted to provide that because I saw some discussion about it in the chat, and I thought it was probably prudent. And I know
was
it took a lot
skeptical of
longer
the
than I thought.
product too. And my simple reasoning for answer that is, what are the crucial questions we need to ask? Are the problems Palantir is trying to solve big? I would say yes. Has Palantir succeeded in solving these big problems? Yes. And we underlined the examples like COVID, Ukraine, and so on. Are actually clients, after the problem is solved, willing to stay with Palantir? And we have plenty of evidence for that. Actually, the problem with the NHS is that the NHS wants to keep using it, and there is a political friction. So I think these 3 questions are enough to judge the product is good or not. In my opinion, the answer to these 3 questions is yes, therefore the product is not the problem. The problem is on the sales problem.
All right. Speaking about problems, let's finally move on to this big piece of news. Peter Thiel, co-founder of Palantir, was a major Republican donor in 2020, backing Donald Trump, 2016 and 2020, I think. And in 2024, he is not going to plan to donate to any political candidate in 2024. His big argument is that he is unhappy with cultural issues that Republicans are focusing on. He's been a lifelong Republican, talking about abortion, transgender issues, and not economic issues, which is kind of the core reason he supported Donald Trump, because he ran on an America First agenda. My question is the implication this has for Palantir. Palantir has been tainted over the past 7 years as the Trump-backed billionaire, CIA, all this type of stuff, and they just take the brand of Trump and they slap it onto Palantir. When we know, Palantir really is not in line with that kind of braggadocious, audacious type of brand. It's just a software company that's trying to help you understand your data a little bit better. Do we think this is good moving into the future of Palantir now that Thiel is not going to be politically active? And more importantly, do we think Thiel realized the stock is in the gutter if he is outwardly making speeches at the RNC for Trump, because the Republican candidate's probably going to be Trump, that it's not going to look good for Palantir trying to get some bigger contracts?
That's
Chris,
exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, unfortunately, the way that our politics is these days, there's more emphasis on words than there are on actual things that happen. So it's almost like the My Pillow guy, right? The My Pillow guy supported Donald Trump, and I don't know how many brands removed their pillows from their store shelves. You see, like, just because the My Pillow guy has a stupid opinion, you're gonna take the product, which is actually selling, off the market. Like, really? That's what you're doing? That's how this is where the world is today. Unfortunately, I don't like the fact that that's happening, but it is a fact. So right now, if you support a candidate, the opposite will come after you. So it's always better to just be politically neutral, in my opinion. So Thiel, I wish he had never gotten involved in the Trump side of things, where he was openly supportive of Trump. I think he could have done it in the background, and just, still had his political beliefs, sectioned off his core beliefs, and said, you know what, I can support Donald Trump, but I'm not going to make an outward presentation so that now the company that I have a large ownership stake in is also demonized because of that. So I think that's true for all major companies right now. So everyone is trying to be as politically neutral in the front end. In the back end, they're like, here's an example of someone that did a really good job of supporting their people, but never really came to light. Ken Griffin. You guys know who Ken Griffin is with Citadel, right? Mm-hmm. He's a Republican mega donor. But does anyone ever say, you know what? Let's stop using X, Y, and Z from Citadel. No, because they're just like, well, Ken Griffin is a Republican supporter, but he does it like in the back. The minute you step out there and you're in the limelight and you're in the picture with Donald Trump, best believe that there's going to be a negative reaction towards your company.
Chris,
Like I said,
do you think?
yeah.
Do you think Palantir, Thiel was motivated to support Trump as a Palantir key person or for personal interest? Like, how do you see the connection between what Peter Thiel does in politics and his figure on Palantir?
No, I mean, you know, when you think about it, I maybe this is the one time Peter Thiel didn't think about the negative consequences that would come to come towards like his business interests, right? He thought maybe Donald Trump will have the rhetoric behind it, but there are key things that Donald Trump was saying that Peter Thiel probably agreed with, right? And so Peter Thiel, as an individual citizen, supported some of the messages that were coming from Trump. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. The problem is the minute that you shake hands, every one of their opinions is what you hold in the face of people, right? So here's an example. I think, you know, for me, like, let's say just as an example, me, I am a Republican. Like, I don't know if that's a big secret, but I'm a Republican. But that doesn't mean that I think abortion should be banned. I think abortion should be available for people, especially if you get, you know, you're in a situation where you have rape and medical problems and everything else. I think it should be a woman's choice whether they want to have an abortion. I think there should be some limits at the very end. Like, you can't be aborting a baby like a week before you're about to deliver. I think that's something that everyone can get behind. But if, let's say right now, me being a Republican saying, hey, I'm a Republican, everyone is automatically going to assume that I'm pro-life. That's it. You know, because that is how people perceive things. That's how it is. The minute you slap a label on you, they never ask the nuance question behind it anymore. They're just like, oh, you're a Democrat? You support defunding the police. Not every Democrat supports defunding the police. That's the dumbest. There are plenty of Democrats that have come out and said that is a stupid idea. We need to back the blue because we live in a crime-ridden city. We don't want to have that situation. But right now, the minute you say Democrat, automatically it's like, oh, this guy, he doesn't care about the cops. He doesn't care about that. And the same thing with the Republicans. Like, the minute you say you're a Republican, oh, this guy must be pro-life. He's a white supremacist. Do I look like a white supremacist? You know, and it's like, that's where this is where politics is stupid these days. Where
so you think it was just a miscalculated personal bet? Because I was thinking of Thiel trying to get into politics as a way to actually open doors for Palantir. Because
I see your point, Arnie, but Palantir's been getting a ton of deals with the Biden administration, so I don't know if Trump got them more.
Yeah, but believe it or not, because the doors were already opened.
No, they've been getting deals since the Obama administration.
Dude, Obama administration was the one that gave them some of the most deals when during Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, everyone thinks that, you know what, Peter Thiel needed to get into politics to sell Palantir. Complete opposite. The minute that was my point. The minute that Peter Thiel got in line with Donald Trump, New York City, which the NYPD uses, automatically was like, oh, this is an evil product. Then the border control. All those border control contracts, they weren't signed under Donald Trump with Palantir. They were done with Barack Obama. And that's
so it was actually a backlash.
Obama deported more people than Trump. Trump just, the whole cages stuff, like, he did it in a stupid way, in a horrible way. But Obama's the one who deported more, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
like, if you look at who did most of the drone strikes, like literally drone strikes across Afghanistan and Iraq, who was the one that authorized it? It was President Obama, right?
Yes.
But it's Trump that's the one that's baby killer. No one says that about Obama. So this is, once you have a narrative behind your specific brand, it's really hard to take that off. So right now, Donald Trump is uncaring. Donald Trump, you know, doesn't care about immigrants. Donald Trump is X, Y, and Z. And no matter what Donald Trump does now, he's labeled as that guy. And you can't get that label off. Right now, he can literally open the border, let everyone through, and people still say, no, he hates immigrants.
And I think Thiel knows Trump has a really good shot of winning. Like, given, you know, Biden's running again, he's 80 years old, can barely talk. You know, unfortunately, I don't mean to be disparaging, but Trump has a good shot. And if Palantir is again connected with the Trump brand, it's just not good. I would be pretty upset as a shareholder. Like, I don't want that shit. Like,
And
Like,
do you
I
think
do not want that.
Palantir will detach from it? Because as we said, once a label is stick to it, is very hard to detach.
I think when 70 million people in the NHS don't have backlogs anymore, yes, they're not going to give a shit about a Vice article from 2017.
I was going to say, I think, how do I say this? It's all about, like you said, who's the article that put it out and what way do they lean, right? And I think, like you guys both mentioned, there's a lot of deals going on in the Biden administration. There's a lot of deals going on in the Obama administration. This company's been around since 2003. Like, it's not like it's just coming to light just based off of, being, in one of the founders was being in support of Trump back in, the 2016 well, I guess it wasn't 2016. Well, I guess it was. Yeah. So I think I don't know. I don't like this aspect of it. I mean, the media can portray however they want, right? Just like how UK is portraying that, Palantir is some sort of spy organization. They're going to give out all your data, right? I think it's just all whoever wants to portray because they have billions of dollars and they have control over people's minds. But anyway, I don't like the whole the political aspect of it. And I think, if you listen to Karp, I think you know which way he leans, and I don't think that the company is a Republican focused or a left leaning focused organization. They're an America first focused sort of organization, and I think it's all just based off of who in the media has most to gain by the failure of Palantir or the disruption of Palantir. And that's the way it's truly spun. And like you said, once that narrative kind of gets going, just like how they try to take down Elon, right? Just they all tried to take down Elon because he was buying Twitter. Why? Not because they actually care about, Twitter or anything. They care about the voices that can then be now heard and the secrets that are let out about the laptops that were, kind of hidden and what was going on at the CDC and, all these things that were been shielded because of the previous people that were one side focused or another were truly disobeying people's First Amendment rights. Now, I'm okay with censorship in some aspects. Obviously, you don't want to talk about murdering babies, but at the end of the day, it's like we were hiding things from, and I think sometimes I think these questions that some of these CEOs and stuff get are very what should we call it? Very like gotcha sort of questions. But at the end of the day, like I think from the Twitter after the Twitter files kind of came out, they started interviewing some of the CEOs and some of the administration, the Biden administration and stuff like, and they were like, why were people that went to Harvard and Stanford and got doctorate degrees and are certified doctors being censored by people at Twitter who have literally zero medical experience or anything of the like, right? And that's the sort of world that we can live in if we don't have people like Palantir fighting for our freedom. We don't have people like, anyway. So I think that you have great companies like Palantir that don't try to fight going left or going right. And that's why part of the reason why they left Silicon Valley. But we talked about that, a couple episodes ago. But I think it's very prominent. And I don't like the whole, trying to get into discussion of politics because at the end of the day, like I'll talk about geopolitical, but internal, like
the problem is politics is linked
right.
with Palantir. That's the issue, right? It's heavily
linked. But I think that that's the billionaires' decision. If Palantir had their way, I think that they would just look America focused and they wouldn't really lean left or right. And
no, but you agree with me, Matt, that it's good that Thiel is not supporting Trump or not actively supporting Trump for 2024.
To be very frank, I think he could support whoever the hell he wants.
No, yeah, obviously. But outwardly speaking at the RNC in 2024, I think every Palantir shareholder should be like, please don't. Forget your political beliefs. That is not going to look good for Palantir. Just like if he supported Biden, that's not good for us either. I mean, like, it's not good to be so outwardly.
To be very frank, I think for the stock, it would probably be better if he supported Biden.
You think for the stock it would be? Okay, I mean,
that's why half of these corporations perform this. Dude. There's so much performance. There's political theater, and some people buy it. You know what? Most people buy into it. This. I'll give you an example. You have this. You know what? I'm like borderline about to get canceled for being a Republican. because I saw the comments.
We all knew you were
I was thinking,
Republican,
it's like
Chris.
Chris.
It's not that
I
hard.
know, no. I'm just, and to be honest though, I used to be a Democrat. When it came, I was harder Democrat than I was ever Republican. I'm like more in the middle Republican than ever. Like when I was much younger, I was very idealistic. I thought the Republicans were fucking evil. They're demons. Like they don't give a shit about anything. All they want to do is give the money to the wealthy and tax the poor. Like I was indoctrinated into that thing. But as I got older, I started to see the consequences of one bad economic policy that ended up really badly for me and my family, right? Because that's what happens. You know, eventually these things are going to affect you. So that, as an example, the older you get, the more money you make. When you make more money, your taxes, you're going to pay way more in taxes. So when they say tax the rich and you're rich, you're like, hold on a second. I don't know if this tax the rich thing is okay. It's easy to say tax the rich when you don't have money. It's really hard to say it when you actually do have money. So
yeah,
Chris was actually canceled after showing Slootman's video. That's fine. That's fine.
But I think every Palantir shareholder should be happy of this decision by Thiel because he knows this stuff, bro. He knows the stock is in the gutter. It might still be in the gutter for 18 months. And he does not, especially corporate America. Like imagine trying to sell to a liberal C-suite executive. And then you've got the co-founder outwardly supporting Trump and they associate Trump with evil. Like that's just a hard sales decision to make. Like I don't even know Slootman's politics. That's how, you know,
while it might be better for the stock, I don't think that's why Thiel's doing it.
I think that's exactly why Thiel's doing it.
I don't think it's why Thiel's doing it.
I don't remember Palantir wasn't public in 2016 when he supported Trump, and he didn't want them to be public. They rushed going public in 2020 because the market opportunity was there because of COVID. But if they were a private company, they didn't have to deal about all this political backlash. I think he realized, like, yes, he doesn't want them to focus on hot cultural issues. He wants them to focus on economic issues. But at the end of the day, I also think he doesn't want Palantir, which could be $1 trillion company one day, to be associated with in such a political way, right? Like if you're the CEO of YouTube, yeah, you can support all this transgender stuff because all those people will make content on your platform and it's an inclusive environment, all this stuff. But because that's YouTube's content, it's fun. TikTok, when you're a B2B business enterprise, you're building software for the military. You don't want to have the Trump stuff associated with you, I think.
Well, the question here is how much Peter Thiel actually cares of Palantir. Is it an active investment? So we need to take it to 1 trillion, or it is more, okay, I put the capital, I let it grow however it goes. What do you think, guys?
He's the only one that hasn't sold. Karp is sold, Sham is sold, Stephen Cohen's sold.
I think Thiel sold a little bit at $20 or something like that.
I don't know. I don't think he did.
Can we check on Quiz? Can we check last time?
Check.
Let's check.
I don't think Peter Thiel. Maybe he sold some during the IPO, but I don't think Peter Thiel has sold a single share Palantir.
Might be right about this.
Does he need to sell for SBC, or actually Peter Thiel receives SBC? Now I don't remember.
I mean, he might receive stock as part of
his president, right?
Yeah.
No, he's not the president. Stephen Cohen is the president. He might be chairman, but let me see what the board of directors.
Well, isn't it the same? In Italian, is the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so interesting because Thiel never talks about Palantir, so we're kind of confused. Like, does he really love this thing? Does he still see it going to the moon? I think.
Well, I think, how do I put this? I think the hardest transition of, like, it might have been Thiel's brainchild, but I think one of the hardest transitions, and I think that's why I think it was prudent to put Karp kind of as the leader of it, is while I think it was Thiel's brainchild, he had somebody like Karp execute it. And I think that's part of the hardest part of the transition, is going from the number one founder to, say, a follow-on legacy. Now, I don't think that, still you could consider Karp a founder. I still think he is, but I think he was kind of a secondary founder rather than the true founder. I think the real founder, in my opinion, was probably Thiel. But I mean, they all kind of executed the vision together. But at the end of the day, I think having that step back, it was like when Larry and Sergey stepped away from Google, right? It was a very tough transition in the mid 2000s because of that. And, they had to go back and forth, for quite some time before it truly was able to kind of take off, right? So I think, and just like Jassy's having right now, like I think he's done a phenomenal job at Amazon, but I think I think you're always going to have people that are afraid and skeptical of that initial transition.
So
I think-
just for everyone's info, real quick, Chris,
Yeah.
last time Peter Thiel sold was August 2021. And guess how much he sold? 3,000 shares. He has not sold more than 3,000 shares since 2021. So that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So does this means also that Peter Thiel is not increasing shares?
He's not
Because if
buying
he
either. Yeah.
No, but if he received stocks from SBC, we would have seen some selling there, right?
Yes, that's true.
Well, he's not executive, right? He's not an executive person. So he's probably getting compensation, cash compensation.
Yeah.
But he's not getting stock. Like executive management typically gets stock. Board of directors, sometimes they can do shares, but most of the time it's just cash.
I'd be curious. I have to look at my own organization. I'm curious what.
Yeah.
But
I just want to say with Andy Jassy, bro, I feel so bad for Andy Jassy because Bezos was around, COVID happens, they overinvest in everything. They just go fucking ham on CapEx. And then Bezos is like, hey, I'll see you guys later. I'm going to retire. I got my girlfriend. I'm going to go hit her up, go to Coachella. And Andy Jassy's like, hey, Andy, guess what? You're the CEO now. And Andy's like, what? Really? And he's such a really nice, soft-spoken guy. And now he's got to clean up the mess of dealing with all this overbuild.
He had to deal with AOC in 2018 when they were trying to find a headquarters. He was doing a lot. Yeah.
It's just,
I was listening to the conference call yesterday, and I had to double take a few times. His mannerisms and his speak sounds a lot like Bezos. So I feel like he spent a lot of time, and it was influenced pretty heavily by Jeff.
Yeah. Dude, Andy Jassy, for those that don't know, amazing CEO. The guy is on another level of operations. But the one thing is that he is not he's not the charismatic guy. He's a really good operations guy. So if you compare, I always compare Steve Jobs and Tim Cook. Tim Cook is not the type of guy that goes out in the ether and makes you feel like, wow. But in terms of running a company, Tim Cook is a fucking beast. And I think Andy Jassy is the same thing. Right now, everything that Amazon is doing is moving them to a very good place. And if you wanted a lieutenant to take over, there wasn't a better lieutenant than Andy Jassy. I don't think anyone else could have done the job.
What do you think of the move into healthcare and the discussion that they had on AI? Sorry, I know this is Palantir Weekly.
Yeah, we got to end it now. We got to do another discussion because it's getting now 12:30.
I think it was good. I think it's something that Andy Jassy and Amazon see as low-hanging fruit that they need to get involved with and keep up. Because the thing is, you can't just keep optimizing your own business, because if you just keep doing that, eventually you'll run out of runway and then you'll die a death of slow cut. So you always have to keep investing in the new stuff. So AI is the new thing right now. Now Amazon doesn't invest in it, they're going to get left behind and they're going to get their market share eaten away. So yeah, Amazon right now to me is the best no-brainer stock that you could have bought. Today, I went heavy. I bought 25 calls on Amazon, long-term leap contracts, December of 2025. I was like, bro, this is gonna go way beyond what people are thinking. Just on the notion of just the original numbers, it already had shot up to 122. I can't believe it's down to what it is today. But here's the thing, and I don't know if you guys saw this on my Twitter. I was smart about it. I actually, right before the close, bought a whole bunch of puts, short-term puts on Amazon right before the earnings. Why? It's because we had such a fucking stupid run-up during the day. And at the same time, I was like, if one thing does not come right, the stock is going to crash. And that's exactly what fucking happened. Even though I'm bullish on Amazon, that is one of the things that you have to really be careful with. You can be bullish on the company, but keep in mind, you should always buy some insurance, just in case. So, yeah.
Do you mind sharing what price, the strike price you bought your calls at, or?
I just bought it at the money, $110. $110.
It's a pricey contract.
It was
not cheap,
but it was
not cheap.
But the thing is, my position is actually kind of large. It's almost 10% of my portfolio. So when you have a large percent of your portfolio in one specific stock, you should be willing to buy a little bit of insurance no matter what.
So Chris, at the money means that if it's above 110 by December 2025.
No. Okay, so let me explain. So the put that I bought was a 110 put that expires this week.
Yeah,
right?
that I know.
So that's a whole different thing. the contract that I bought long for in the future, because whenever I buy calls long. Whenever I buy puts short in short term, so that this way I can maximize both. So if I don't buy puts right now hoping a company goes down. I buy puts for its intended purpose, which is insurance. That's the way I interpret it. With calls, I think of them as a substitute for stock, especially if you're buying really, really long dated calls out there, and so it's like a leveraged position that you can take without having to
put it bluntly, let's say Chris bought the 105 call and he paid $5 for it. And by December 2025, if it's not $110, the 105 strike price plus the $5 premium, he's technically going to lose money.
Right.
Technically, he'll be able to make some money back if it's anything above 105, right? But he'll make nothing if it's below 105.
And your argument, Chris, is that there's no doubt it's going to be above 110 by December 2025, which is why.
Which is why he would do that, because he's putting in, instead of buying $100,000 or $105,000 worth of stock, right? Or $10,500 worth of stock, he's being able to buy it for $500 and basically be able to exceed any leverage above. So instead of getting every dollar for dollar uptick after 105, or in this case 110, he's going to be sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, the call that I bought was just to clarify, the call that I bought was 125. So I bought a 125 call, and then actually I sold the 165 call against it, so that this way now I'm doing a spread. Right. So now I can leverage a position which is
smart. So what ends up happening in this particular case? So Chris collected a bit of premium. So I don't know what premium he got on the 125, but let's just say he bought it for $3 and he sold whatever, but he'll make any dollar above the 125 to the 160. And so he'll probably potentially walk away with what, $3,500 each contract. I'm not smart with math.
60. So basically each spread cost me $6. So my break even is 131. God, man, I don't like fucking talking options.
I'm gonna end it soon, so like we can conclude here, but we get into that rabbit hole. But all right, that's pretty much it. There's a lot of stuff that happened this week. Palantir, we even didn't talk about Palantir Lithuania stuff. We can go on to that later. But obviously the AIP for defense, that's the biggest deal, and let's just see if we can scale it. Next week is the last week, is it, before earnings? Yes, next week is the last week before earnings. So May 5th, we will discuss earnings.
Before we leave, just one thing with Ricky said. Ricky said Chris was yelling buy Amazon, but was buying puts. So let me explain. I was bullish on Amazon. I thought they were going to have a great earnings, but I had bought puts as insurance just in case of an event like this. Okay, that's the point that I'm trying to make. You can be bullish on a company long term, but you also want to just, especially if your position gets too big, make sure you're buying some insurance on it. I think a lot of people, they bought a lot of Palantir when it was $20, whatever, but at the same time, they didn't buy any puts against it. And so when earnings came up really bad, it took them down. And now you're going to get stuck in this sunken cost fallacy where you're going to just be doubling down. For me, if I have a position that's very small, I don't care. I won't buy puts. I'll let the fucker ride. Because at that point, the difference is not going to make a difference. But if it becomes a larger percent of my portfolio, you best believe I'm going to buy some insurance on it just in case, so that my account doesn't get wiped out. And then I have to do all this extra work to try to get back to where I am. So as an example, Austin Lieberman, who I follow, he's trying to create this portfolio where he goes from 15,000 to like 1.5 million, whatever. He bought like $90,000 of Amazon. So he bought, I think 70% of his portfolio, he liquidated and just bought Amazon stock and said, there you go, let's go, earnings, come on. And I'm just like, bro, that's great that you're bullish. I'm bullish with you, but buy some goddamn puts, because now you have a position that's overexposed. That is the key. When you have an overexposed position, do not be afraid to buy some damn insurance on your position, so that this way, just in case shit happens, you can at least sleep easy at night. This is one of those things that you learn when you get older as an investor, man.
That and the thing about options, and I'll just leave it at this, is like, it doesn't just mean that you're going long or going short, right? Chris kind of said, like, You could use option. This is why they're called options. You could use them for income. You could use them for leverage. You can use it for insurance. You can use them for, risk mitigation. You can use it for so many different things. It's just like, when you're buying and selling short on a stock, right? Like you don't just buy a stock always for, it just gives you those opportunities and the options to do whatever the hell you want. And you can't just think about it like, oh, has to go up or has to go down, right? Because you could buy or sell calls. You could buy or sell puts. And depending on what you're doing, people might get confused. You're like, well, I thought if you bought a call, it always was going up. It's like, well, you do the opposite. You actually kind of want it to go down, right? Or you're using it for income. So there's so many different ways, and it's so intricate. And that's why Amit doesn't want to talk about it on the channel, is because it takes a very long, concentrated piece. And it takes it's like learning stocks all over again, right?
Yeah.
The derivatives of stocks. So it's like, it's a whole other complexity in its own. And let's just be very frank. A lot of people that come onto the channel, come onto Twitter, barely have the ability to grasp just owning a stock or selling a stock. Then you're trying to throw a derivative on top of that. It gets very complex very quickly.
Yeah, there's
I
a lot
would
of
not
execution
take
risk.
the derivatives things lightly. Maybe because I have a more value investing framework, but I like the idea of not considering options unless basically you can value invest in the option, meaning that or you buy the insurance for almost free because the price of the insurance is cheap. But if you buy the insurance at an expensive price, you're making still a stupid deal. And the same is worth also for the opposite. If you can buy actually a call, you're making a big bargain only if the call is actually mispriced. Because if you buy a call thinking, oh, I'm going bullish, but you overpay for that, you're not exposing you to a good situation. So I would say just be very careful, even when it comes to buying the insurance, which is a good concept. I personally rosic for the fact that last summer I was plus 80% on basically, plus 40% of the portfolio having Palantir, which was a big position. And then boom, it went down. And in December, it was around minus 30. So the rundown was very dramatic. And having Palantir, which is a big position of mine, I wished I bought an insurance for cheap when the stock was expensive. But again, everything relates to I'm buying an insurance for cheap or I'm buying a free optionality with a call.
Okay. That is it for us. Arnie, I want to give you a chance to shout out your Substack. I just put in the description, Palantir Bullets. What is Palantir Bullets? Can you give everyone a quick description? And
Palantir Bullets is the way I try to spot asymmetries between perception and reality on Palantir. And I do that with a weekly format. So a weekly email recap of what happened during the week. And associated with that, a live stream where I try to go deeper into the topics. And I also try to share insights both on the business, the valuation, and still also this done at a weekly time. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right, PalantirBullets.com. If you are a Palantir shareholder, all 200 of you, you should be subscribed to it. It is free to subscribe, and eventually, if you want to support Arnie for his work, you can definitely pay for it there. And it's some of the best weekly Palantir content coverage out there. So please make sure to subscribe to that. Please like the stream. Chris's and Matt's Twitter are in the description. Please make sure to follow them for your daily dose of Matt trying to be funny and Chris sounding like a finance guru. And you will hopefully get a good time with them on Twitter. And Arnie's Twitter is also in the description. All right, Matt, any thoughts on that? Me calling you not funny, basically? Anything
I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Man,
Trying to be funny, but I'm just not. I don't live up to my uncle. I try my best, but
one of the things I hate is when people say stuff like this guy, Lunar Excursion. He just said covered calls and cash secured puts equals free money. That's
not exactly
terrible.
true. I thought that was true at one point. That's not exactly true.
No, it's really bad, man.
Because you don't know what you're doing, you can lose a lot of upside or downside.
So many people, what they try to do is they try to pick pennies in front of a bulldozer and then they get fucking crushed, man. So
be careful with options, everybody. All right. We'll see you next week before the Palantir earnings. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.